Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and Happy New Year wherever you are. I'll need to address that again in a moment. But Phoebe in Dubai, how are you, my good friend?
Greetings of New Year to all of you. I'm doing well. This is sunny Dubai. The morning sun is looking at me. Shivi, what are you doing? The sun is asking.
Best season in Dubai, isn't it? Best time to
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
So, as we start the new year, well, the new year has already started, Graham, so catch up. we're, we're into the new year already. We've been reflecting in our own way, haven't we, Phoebe? We haven't done it in a while. Our comrade, our compatriot, our fellow leadership challenge protagonist, not protagonist, I don't mean that, I mean flag bearer, Mohammed Shukri, is on to bigger and better things and will join us from time to time. But some wonderful things are happening to him that he needs to pay attention to now. So we wish him all the very best. And I'm sure that our greetings for Happy New Year will resound with him as we have passed those greetings on before. And I hope with everybody else that this is a positive new year. I know that I've said a while ago, if you could be a better in your leadership by 10% in the next 12 months, would that make a difference in your life? And I'm going to say, I reckon if every leader made a commitment to improve their leadership behaviours by 10%, which is not a lot, we could change the world in 12 months. We keep saying leadership is learned. We keep saying you do it all the time. But I think we need a reminder of this. And I think that if people at this stage of the year, early into it now, think, yeah, let's not be overwhelmed or overtaken by new things in the new year and setting things in place. Apart from setting in place a commitment to yourself to be a better leader than you were yesterday. And if we look at being able to improve what we're doing by even a small amount every day, the cumulative impact on that is huge. So, how would you like to help us have this discussion, Vivi?
You said it right, Graham. We have to take some moments of pause and see what can we do differently. In differently means compared to what you always highlight, what can you do differently than yesterday? What is one act which you can do? What ordinary action you can do differently and make a positive impact on you and the people around you? And I think that is the great starting point which we have to explore as leadership practitioners, and also help our viewers, our listeners. Leadership is a relationship, and what can we do with that?
Yes, absolutely. And I do think that this, hopefully, this video and a conversation, whether it's seen on the video or whether it's heard in the podcast, is a reminder to people everywhere that leadership is their responsibility. And sometimes we overlook that. Sometimes we get caught up in the, let's say, the busyness of the work that we are doing. And we lose sight of this being a leader. One of the things I used to say, leadership is not hard. Cleaning of teeth is not hard either, but you got to do both regularly. And I know there's a bit of a strange connection between cleaning your teeth and leadership, but neither of them are hard, but you've got to do them regularly and you've got to do them well. It's not hard. I keep banging on the door saying leadership is not hard. But there are some things in terms of leadership behaviors that leaders sometimes forget. And one of those, importantly, is one which I know resonates with you, doesn't it, Phoebe? And that is listening and how leaders listen. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, yeah, what a powerful idea which you shared. Again, quite often when we when we have the conversation of how listening can be powerful as a leadership behavior, often people don't understand that. And, when we say listening, it is not about simply listening. It is also listening to the uh, words which is not being expressed in that process. And it is in that between the words we make meaning. And yes, and this is something which we had in a conversation yesterday. Sometimes in organizational context, people say there is a communication problem. And and in this conversation, one of the question which arised is, someone is saying communication problem, so that person is communicating to you. Now, what is the underlying meaning behind that? Is it people are not communicating because of fear? People are not communicating due to that psychological safety being absent? Or is it, my leadership is not listening to me? What are we conveying in that process? And there is also sometimes a notion with many people that leadership is about title or position. And I want to reiterate that, leadership is not about title or position. It is a set of, observable behavior that can be learned, practiced, and measured. And that means, again, in my perspective, this year, you are not wanting to become a leader, you are already leading. Every time you choose how to show up, you can be different.
Yeah, absolutely. But you're right about listening. And, I like to think that I'm a pretty good listener. I know that sometimes, for some circumstances that may apply, hey, I don't quite get it right. And I will say this, that I nearly always recognize once I've left that interaction, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't listen enough to this point. I was a little distracted. And there have been times when I'm easily able to, I'll go back to that person and say, look, I've got to apologize. I'm sorry. I was a little distracted when you were making some really good points. And I didn't mean to do that. And I try very much to listen to people and to you particularly. Your ideas and your thoughts are important. So I hope you don't take offense at what I did. And typically they're going to say, oh, wow, no, it was fine. It was okay. But I made a connection with them by making this called a confession or a recognition that I didn't listen to them as well as I could have. Now, I was involved with someone a little while ago here where I am in a business context, and there was a woman, and she made some comments in our discussion which were not hugely significant to the overall discussion that we were having, but more about her little comment about something. And when I was then a week later met with her, now in the discussion that we were having, we weren't the only ones. It wasn't just she and I, her and I. It was there were two other people involved in the discussion as well. But she did let something come out into the conversation that was kind of personal, and we both, everyone was kind of a little bit of that, a little bit. So when I saw her again the next a week or so later, she greeted me warmly, which I noticed and thought that was really, really good. I'm pleased with that. And she asked, how are you and what's happening? And I then directly made a comment that was related to this issue that she had related. And I said, I really need you to do something about that. It was going to make a big difference in your life. And I could tell immediately that she was so touched, maybe, or impressed anyway, that I had remembered that particular detail, which was important to her. And I made reference to it in a small way, but in a way that she would have gone, yeah, wow, fancy him. How about him remembering that? Because that was important to her. As that, or it was important to her, but not important to other people. But I made the connection to it. This happened because I was listening to her, right? As I try to listen to everybody. And we did a whole program on listening last year. And we know that listening is a key skill for leaders. It's a key skill for salespeople. It's a key skill for a medical professional. It's a key skill for a number of different occupations. An airline pilot's got to be a really good listener, right? If he gets something from the air traffic control which says, turn around, go away, right? He's got to be a good listener. But leaders have got to be good listeners so that every member of staff, every member of the team, every person that he has a connection with in a business context knows that they can come and talk to him or her, a leader, and that they will be listened to. We all want, I'm sure, to be listened to. And sometimes, even in the family environment, we don't listen enough. And that can impact our relationships with our children, but even more importantly, perhaps, with our partner. We have got to listen. Huge, huge issue if we don't. So, what sort of issues can happen? What have you noticed about the power of listening, Phoebe? Did you hear me?
Yeah. It got me thinking, and I was just uh, reflecting myself. Sometimes I am also not a good listener, and again, it impacts the way in which I create picture and create understanding within my mind, and sometimes because you miss some of that core part of the communication, you then work on assumptions at times. So as you mentioned, one of the foundation for any positive influence we can hope to have is based on how how we listen, how deeply we listen, how we understand the other person's perspective, and what questions we ask in that process. And again, this is something which I just want to share with our viewers and listeners. Imagine if your team or family members watched only the behavior for a week. What would they say my real values are? And listening can also be linked to the values which we have. And what values, and that values are demonstrated in the listening process.
Absolutely. I'm a good communicator. Oh, yeah. There's a commercial running recently in Australia, and the lead in this small commercial is a very much loved performer in Australia. Magda Jabansky is the name, and she's known for several characters she's created over the years and dealing with a very serious health problem at the moment. But in this commercial, her daughter says she'd picked up a game of some sort about interpersonal skills. And her daughter says, "Oh, here's a question. What one word would you use to describe yourself?" And the reply from the woman, her mother, said, "I'm a good listener. I'm a good listener." There's 4 words. One word to describe yourself. I'm a good listener. So to the very question, she got it wrong, right? um, and there were times when I was doing listening exercises in workshops, and I can't at the top of my head remember one of them, but I know that everybody got it wrong because they weren't listening. Now, one of the more simple ones is when I was with let's just say it was a predominantly Indian participant in the workshop or from the subcontinent. And I might say, so I don't know how I'll introduce it, but I'd say, so is there a 4th of July do you have a 4th of July in India? And I've had, was it the 23rd of August? What is it? What's the date?
It is 15th of
15th.
August, the Independence Day.
They'll say, yes, yes. So they'll say, no, it's the 15th of August. And I'll say, oh, so the calendar goes, in India, the calendar goes July 3, August 18, and July 5. Is that how it goes? Because they are thinking I'm asking, do you have an Independence Day? I'm asking, do you have a 4th of July?
Yeah.
Simple things can derail the listening. And of course, they'd laugh and say, ah, ha, ha. You didn't listen. I didn't ask, did you have an Independence Day? You assumed that that was what I was asking, but I wasn't. I can't, off the top of my head at the moment, think of one where I said every time prove that you are not good listener. And there are little exercises and activities we can do, but it all begins with the leader and how he models this very behavior and how he demonstrates that he's not only listening, but he is engaged in the listening process. Now,
Yeah.
he cannot be listening while he's got his iPhone in his hand and he's trying to send a message. He cannot be listening if he's looking at his laptop and trying to answer a question. He cannot be listening if he's focusing on something else. So this is how you as a leader model this particular function of listening. And you're not doing anything else. You are looking at that person and engaged in what they are talking about. And you're asking some questions about what they're saying so that you understand what's all them. And so when the person's finished, they might even just be giving you some simple information that you need to have. But it is important that they know that whenever they pass any information on to you, that you have listened. And they know this because you do it every time. And if you can't listen, it's important that you say, Phoebe, I know that that's important. I can't deal with it at the moment. Can we talk about this in 10 minutes? I've got to deal with this first. Sure, Graham. Okay, then I'll give you my full attention, right? That's what we should be doing rather than listening with one ear. No, you've got to listen with your head and your heart and both ears.
Yeah, as you highlighted, model the way, and quite often it is being observed in many times, like people coming to the meeting rooms and their phones either creating a distraction, or maybe someone is speaking, someone is focusing on the mobile. So I think this is one practical move which I like to share with our viewers and listeners. This Q1 of 2026, choose one visible behavior that will reinforce your values this week. As we progress, it might be starting every Monday with a short stand-up, linking to priorities, back to your shared values, or it can be ending a week by reviewing whether your actions matched your stated commitments, so that you can reflect.
So based on what you've just said, which I think is fantastic. I want to extend it further though, and say, as a leader, in the start of this year, okay, it's just about to be the start of February when we're doing this, but don't tell anybody else. So, at the start of the year, make a commitment that you, as a leader, at the beginning of the week, will write down 5 behaviors that you are going to focus on this week. The Monday might be, I am going to make sure that I improve my listening skills on Monday. Tuesday, it might be, I'm going to make sure that I challenge someone in a way that makes them improve what they are looking to believe that they can do something better than they thought. The next one could be, I'm going to make sure that I build relationships with people solidly that day. Do you see what I mean? We could easily have 5 in a week. At the end of the week, this person says to themselves, did I do it? I didn't do it so well with this one. So that goes into the list for the following week. And they have some other behaviors that they're going to focus on. And they look at these at the start of every day. And it might be as simple as, what can I do, without nominating it? What can I do to be a better leader today than I was yesterday? And they might think, well, I could engage someone in a way that I haven't done. Okay, I'll do. And then I'm going to suggest we extend that further after the leader has done it himself, maybe for a month. But don't forget what you're doing. You've got to make sure you do it. And then say to the team, this is what I have been doing. Every day, I have been focusing on a new learning in terms of leadership. And I set out the 5 for the week that I'm going to focus on every day to do that. I'm going to challenge each of you to do the same thing, because I'm pretty sure that I have gained valuable learning behavior, and I'm implementing that behavior in the time that I have been doing this. I know that I am listening more effectively. I know that I'm greeting people with sincerity and not just casualness. I know that I'm identifying things that how I can challenge someone to do something that they didn't think that they were capable of doing, right? These are all related to the 5 practices of exemplary leadership. So you set a little plan for yourself. Do that every day for maybe a month, and then say to the team, this is what I want you to do. In other words, I've got a plan for us to develop our leadership skills for the next 12 months so that we will be more than 10% improved as leaders. And we are making a real difference in the world. How does that sound, Phoebe?
It sounds fantastic. And I think I like to bring that second practice of leadership challenge here. You are inspiring a shared vision in that process.
Yeah.
One more aspect which I just like to add is, teams are hungry for clarity. And this is something which you brought in this process, and highlighting as a leader, where are we going? And why does this matter? So these processes are brought brilliantly through that perspective which you shared, and I think um, it is about the future. What way I am changing?
And in simple terms, also, once these behaviors become ingrained, you know what I mean by ingrained part of you. You don't have to think about it; they automatically come. They are reflexive responses. Then what happens with that? You use this term so often about modeling the way. People will see what you are doing and they will mirror what you are doing. I've said so often, watch what you are doing because people are watching you. What are they learning from you today in your behavior? I hope it's positive, right? Because so this is something that you carry on to the rest of the world for them to learn and take on themselves. You haven't even got to say it sometimes. People just say, good things are happening. He's doing this and this. I want to try that because that gets good results for everybody.
Yeah, and again, this brings me the perspective. You are co-creating with the team in this process.
Well said.
And quite often in many organization, there is a chance that it become one-way broadcast, but also this broadcast is actually being accepted, and sometimes people are people are reacting to that, and that is where the culture gets shaped by the leader's behavior.
Yeah. Let me extend what you just said in the suggestion that I had of the behavior each day for 5 days. If everybody has, let's just say, as my extension of that was that we introduced this to the team, and one way to do that is to say, let us all agree on what it will be each day. So we are all working on listening, or we are all working on building relationships, or we are all working on challenging, whatever. We're all doing this. And then they are accountable to each other for the behaviors that they implement that day. So then they can gently say to one of their colleagues, do you think that what you just did is consistent with what we're supposed to be doing today? Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. This is a learning which is, you used the word before, it's engaging all of them, and they all have ownership of this learning process. We keep saying leadership is learned. We also say the best leaders are the best learners. And we're not talking about here about learning Russian or learning to speak Arabic in 3 weeks. We are learning basically simple things which are relatable and which other people will notice because of our behavior, and we get good results for everybody. Do you agree?
Yeah, and I think that is also the challenge, that is also the challenge for leaders. And I bring to the third practice, the leadership challenge, the challenging the process, like exemplary leaders actively search for opportunities to improve,
Yeah,
experiment with new
yeah,
approaches, and again learn from both successes and failures. In the sense, failures means what doesn't work at this point of time, which
Yep.
can help us to further improve and innovate.
That's what we've got to be doing. That's what we got. That's our goal for 2026. It should be the goal for every year, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. The speaker some years ago, who's well known in the United States, and he said, I like to improve myself by a factor of 2% every day. And he said, it says, it never ceases to amaze me when I look back for the previous 2 weeks and I see how stupid I was then. What he's saying, of course, is that if you aim to increase your performance, your behavior retention by a factor of 2%, that's not a lot, every day. That is a cumulative, whoops, for the mathematicians in the room, that is a cumulative difference. And so after 2 weeks, it's not 2% plus 2%. No, it's 2% multiplied by 2% every day, right? It's huge. It's a big difference. I forget the figure. But we do little things every day. So that suggestion I had about having an objective every day for the next 5 days in terms of my behavior and what I'm going to do. One single objective each day that I'm going to focus on. That is not huge. But at the end, when it's happened and the results that you see, I can do that again. I can do that as part of me normally. And that behavior, as I said earlier, becomes reflexive. You haven't got to think about it. You just do it. Years ago, my mother, this is related. This is about the learning. This is about what's happening up here in our brain with new behavior, whether it's listening, whether it's the words we use or whatever. But my mother used to say, think before you speak. Your mother might have said that too. I don't know whether she met my mother when they were shopping sometime. I don't think so. But that's what mothers would say to children, think before you speak. Now, what happens when you think before you speak? You then get to a point where you don't have to think because it's reflexive. It's become the new thought process, and the way you're putting things comes automatically. The brain says, oh, I'm going to default to that word, not that word. I'm going to default to that because I know it's a better way of doing it. I'm going to default to listening without having to suddenly think, do I listen? I'm not listening. So this change becomes embedded. We don't have to think before we speak. Well, sometimes we do, but we are conditioned to doing the right thing, and that's how the learning of behaviors takes place. Phoebe, one final word, please. Are you listening?
Yeah, yeah. And I think this, as we are in the beginning of January, I will say January of 2026, this is the perfect time to ask which assumptions from last year no longer serves us.
Yeah.
That is one. Second is where are we doing things? Because that is how we have always done it.
Yeah.
What can we do differently? So, as we pass on, these thoughts may help us to drive in a different direction, in a different pathway. And as you mentioned, that improvement every day, that can be the new growth path which we haven't yet seen.
Yes. And it's not hard to get there. It just takes a little bit of practice, a little bit of practice. And let's hope that everybody who's engaged in this is going to make some difference in their lives and for the rest of the world. Libby, thank you very much. I will be looking forward to our conversation at the same time next week. Have a great week, Libby.
Yeah, and I just want to request our viewers, listeners, please subscribe, bring your thoughts, bring your comments. And if there is still bottlenecks which you face in your line of work, in organizations, we are here to support you. Reach out.
Wise words, as always. Thank you very much. Bye
Thank
now.
you.